evening, everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of IOBA to discuss the transformative power of UPI in India and explore its potential for implementation in Pacific countries. Today, I would like to talk to you about groundbreaking technology that has transformed the way we conduct financial transactions in India and has the potential to revolutionize the global financial landscape. A very warm welcome to His Excellency Mr. David Vine, who allowed us to use his premises for this event. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to High Commissioner of Fiji, Mr. Kamlesh Prakash Sahai. Thank you so much for coming. Honorary Consulate General of Palau, Dr. Neeraj Sharma, thank you for coming, sir. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Rupinder Barar, IRIS, Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. I must share with you that she's just been promoted as the Additional Secretary, Ministry of Coal, I think a few hours back. Thank you, ma'am, for coming. We also have with us Ms. Sonal Asnani from NPCI. Thank you, Sonal, for coming. Sitanshu Mitra from Sumitomo Bank. Thank you, Sitanshu. Sameer Gupta from IndusInd Bank. Thank you, Sameer, for coming. And Ankit Khurana from India Lens. Your presence here today underscores the significance of our discussion, and we are deeply grateful for your participation. Now let us turn our attention to the groundbreaking impact of UPI in the Indian financial landscape. UPI has emerged as a game changer, revolutionizing the way financial transactions are conducted in India. It is a shining example of innovation, interoperability, and inclusivity. Through UPI, India has made enormous strides in advancing financial inclusion, reducing cash dependence, and enhancing the efficiency and security of transactions. It is well said in Bhagavad Gita, you are what you believe in. You become that which you believe you can become. One of the key factors behind UPI's success is its simplicity. With a smartphone and a bank account, anyone can initiate payments, transfer funds, or even pay utility bills with a few taps on a mobile app. This simplicity has been pivotal in bridging the digital divide and bringing financial services to millions of people who were previously excluded from the formal banking system. In the words of Nandan Nilekani, the co-founder and non-executive chairman of Infosys and the architect of Aadhaar, UPI has democratized digital finance, making it accessible to every Indian, regardless of their social-economic background. If there is one Indian innovation that has grabbed the global headlines, it is undoubtedly the UPI, or Unified Payments Interface Payment Systems. UPI's place of pride in India's growth story could be easily gauged by Prime Minister Honorable Mr. Narendra Modi's statement at the recently concluded BRICS meeting. He says UPI is used at all levels, from street vendors to large shopping malls. Today, among all countries in the world, India is the country with the highest digital transactions. In the past few weeks, 3 countries have joined the UPI bandwagon quickly: France, the UAE, and Sri Lanka. These 3 countries will now accept transactions via India's homegrown digital payments technology. UPI's entry into France is significant, helping the technology get a foothold in Europe for the first time. Regarding Sri Lanka and the UAE, UPI's entry is set to deepen India's economic ties with the 2 nations. Now the question arises, can the UPI model be implemented in Pacific countries? The answer is a resounding yes. UPI's success can be replicated and adapted to suit the unique needs and challenges of the Pacific region. Just as UPI has fostered financial inclusion in India, Pacific countries can harness its potential to reach undeserved communities, remote islands, and dispersed populations. UPI's interoperability can facilitate seamless transactions across multiple financial institutions and payment platforms, promoting a more efficient and competitive financial ecosystem. We must, however, approach this endeavor with a thorough understanding of the specific challenges and opportunities presented by each country in the Pacific. Collaboration between governments, financial institutions, and technology companies will be crucial in making this vision a reality. Hence, concluding my words, we should embrace change as an opportunity for personal and collective growth, as a chance to evolve, learn, and adapt. It is said by Mahatma Gandhi that you must be the change you want to see in the world. In doing so, we can not only cope with the change, but also harness its transformative power for the betterment of ourselves and the world around us. Remember that while change can bring challenges and uncertainties, it also opens doors to new possibilities, experiences, and horizons. Thank you very much. May I now request His Excellency Mr. David Pine to give his opening remarks.
Good evening, everybody. Wonderful to see you all here as we approach the Diwali season, and that was, I think, a terrific context from Vikram for today's discussion, which it's our great pleasure to host. IOBA has become a key partner, not just for the New Zealand High Commission, but for the whole of our ever-growing Pacific family of diplomatic and honorary consular representatives that we're lucky to have here in Delhi, and as Vikram acknowledged, particularly lucky today to have the High Commissioner of Fiji and Honorary Consul Payal with us. New Zealand, as you may know, has just been through an election, and after we have elections under our system of voting, we usually have negotiations. It's very rare for a single party to get enough seats to govern alone. So the negotiations are being led by the National Party, which won the largest number of seats and I think reasonably expects to form the government, with two other parties, ACT and New Zealand First, and between the three of them they will have a majority. We're expecting to see the shape of that government, the allocation of portfolios, the type of arrangement between the parties announced sometime in, I think perhaps by the end of this week or next week. But we're very, very confident that however things pan out, the relationship with India will continue to surge ahead. India actually featured quite prominently in our election campaign, with both the major parties looking almost to outbid each other on who would be more committed to the relationship with India, and so we at the High Commission felt we were pretty comfortable going into election day. We felt we were going to win whichever party came in. And I think Mr. Luxon, who I think will be the next Prime Minister, committed to coming to India within his first year of his Prime Ministership. So I think we can expect by this time next year we'll have seen him up here in India with a very large delegation, and I think you can expect that before he comes you'll have seen a succession of New Zealand ministers coming to build the agenda and build the relationship. It will be building on a relationship that's already been moving forward, particularly, we like most diplomatic relationships, we were in a bit of a hiatus through the COVID period, but since COVID we've seen big uptick in activity in both directions. Minister Jaishankar was the first Indian External Affairs Minister to visit New Zealand in 20 years. He stayed for 5 days, and his visit really made an impact. So he was calling for, he was characterising the relationship between our two countries as a relationship that was ready for its next phase. And that certainly seemed to strike a chord. The India-New Zealand Business Council produced a report stealing his IP and using that as the title for their report to government. They brought together the whole business community to provide a single vision for the relationship. And the key messages for that were, we can't look at the economic relationship without looking at the wider relationship, and we need to lift across the board from security and defence. We need stronger ties right the way through the cultural activity, and the economic relationship has to sit inside that context. It's not going to lead it. And perhaps we don't need to focus quite as obsessively on a free trade agreement right now as we had in the past, and looked at all the actual opportunities that there are in front of us, which brings us to UPI. Naturally enough, is one of the issues that we can crack on with without any need for a free trade agreement. But you know, it's a good example of the sort of thing we can do that can really lift the relationship. I think of it in the context of the kind of infrastructure that would support the strengthening of our relationship. On the physical goods side, we've just seen Mainfreight, New Zealand's largest logistics company, into the Indian market, and that will enhance the physical flow of goods in both directions. But you need financial connections. And I think I think the interest that we're already seeing, and that we'll hear more about today, reflects that it's probably quite fertile ground. We've had a huge surge in migration from India to New Zealand over the last 20 years. We haven't had a census for more than 6 years. In the last census, India was about 5% of our population. I would guess by now it's probably 6%. So if you think of us as a country of 5 million people, that's 300,000 people. And most of those 300,000 people have come in the last 20 years. A lot of them are very young. They've come in through the education system. They're hip, they're familiar with, they're financially and technologically literate. So you've probably got, I'd say, a good 200,000 ambassadors for UPI sitting down in New Zealand already, who will show their Kiwi friends how to use it. And I think we've got, just a great opportunity. I think, as Vikram was saying, this is part of a wider empowerment agenda as well. Women's empowerment is one of the themes of our public diplomacy, and I think you'll, it's quite interesting the number of women here from the SME sector, and the connect is pretty obvious, isn't it? Anything that strengthens the ability to do direct transactions is going to have a natural spillover to the empowerment for them, and this can only be a good thing. We are always delighted to host IOBA events in this room, the Mana Room. I'm pleased to say that the next time you come in, the room will have been completely renovated. We're about to go through changes. Another good sign, our friends on the other side of the wall from Immigration New Zealand are bulging out of that room now, because we've had to take on more and more people to keep up with the surging demand for visas since the end of COVID. So we're going to have to shift this wall forward, but we're not going to lose any space, because we're going to shift that one in the other direction, and we're going to refit out this room and have it set up for all sorts of facilities, and that will take us out of action for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. But in the new year, we'll be ready, as we always are, to welcome our friends back from IOBA. This is your home as well as our home, and you're always very welcome here. So on that note, can I sneak in an early Happy Diwali to everybody, and to all of your families. I hope you have a peaceful, happy, relaxing and noisy family time, if you can have all those things at once. Thank you very much. It's a great honour to have the new Additional Secretary for Coal, as well as our expert speakers here, and really looking forward to the discussion. I've taken my notepad out, because I'm going to be taking very close notes about these opportunities. Thank you again, Vikram.
Thank you, His Excellency, for the wonderful. I may now request Mrs. Rupinder Barar to please come and share her thoughts, please.
Thank you, Vikram. Excellency David Pine, pleasure meeting you again. And Excellency Fiji and Council, all dear friends from IOBA. It's always a pleasure to come back, and so that's why when Vikram came into the office last week, I just did not have the heart to say no, because it's great to meet everyone. And also meeting on a subject where I think as an Indian who works with the government, it's a matter of great pride for us that we really have led the way when it comes to digitalization. And specifically today, because the subject is UPI, I think matter of great pride for us that the number of transactions that have started coming through the UPI is immense. And definitely as a tax woman, it is music to our ears. So, and that has been a positive externality of the whole UPI, has been the growth in revenues, both the direct and indirect taxes, in terms of the GST collections, in terms of the direct tax collections. India has been showing a robust growth in the last few years. So those have been important, the more objective, let's say, takeaways. But then apart from that, I think where we've really shown strength in this whole space is the inclusive nature of growth that has been made possible because of UPIs. I mean, we all understand that for the small and the micro industry particularly, how important it has been to have the platforms available where you do not need to travel to the banks. And for a country of India's size, it has been a major, we should say, watershed decade in terms of growth. And that's where the future is also headed. Yes, there are still challenges in terms of penetration of digital networks in some of our remote locations, the speed, etc. does present its own challenge, but definitely we are on the right path. And as Vikram, you mentioned, we are leading in terms of the transactions that are being done, and I'm sure that's the way forward for the rest of the world. So lots to learn, yes, for us ourselves, but also lots to be learned from the others, but also to teach the others. I think India has been a great model in terms of the Aadhaar, the UITs. In the income tax department, we have the unique PAN number, and how all the open source hardware and software has been integrated really well amongst the different platforms, and the whole India stack story. I think we can provide a lot of lessons to the Pacific region as we go ahead. So I'm looking forward also to the discussion that's going to come up with the experts as to what is it that we could be further doing as government organizations, as citizens, to make sure that the benefits of digitalization are actually spread out more. Excellency, you mentioned about women. I think in India, also looking at the fact that it's an important SDG goal from the UN's perspective, I think enabling and empowering all the sections of society, including women, and particularly the marginalized ones, that's where I would say that we should be focusing our energies and time in the years to come and leading the way. So thank you once again for your wishes for me. I am happy to share my promotion day with you guys. So it's a good day to be here, and a happy Diwali to all of you in advance with your families. Have fun. Excellency, you forgot to mention all the mithai, the sweet meats. And so everybody must gain a few kilos after every Diwali. Have a happy Diwali, and thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request Payal, she's the moderator for today's event. Payal, if you can take it on from here.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. Thank you, Vikramji. Welcome, Mr. Brar. Always nice to see you. I'm going to very quickly introduce our panelists for today. We'll start with the lady. Ms. Sonal Asnani, she's in charge international business. She leads the business development for Asia Pacific for NPCI products, working with its wholly owned subsidiary, NPCI, International Payments Limited, NIPL. In her present role, she is responsible for driving international business initiatives, facilitating enablement of NPCI products and platforms overseas, predominantly focused on proliferating UPI and RuPay. She engages with the governments, central banks, and networks like NPCI overseas to create business opportunities and deepen the markets. She has over 18 years of experience in payments, startups, aviation, and outsourcing. She has worked with organizations like the Axis Bank, Transurf Private Limited, Thomson Reuters, and Jet Airways. Welcome to the panel, please. We can have more round of applause here. Thank you. Mr. Sitanshu Mitra, current Managing Director and Joint General Manager, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, SMBC, since 2022. Previously, a Senior Executive Vice President and Regional Head of Operations for HDFC Bank from 1995 till 2022. Instrumental in setting up the government business operations for the bank, largely working on the collection of payment spaces for central ministries, state governments, and also large corporates. Welcome to the panel, please. Mr. Samir Gupta, Executive Vice President, Head Decision Sciences and Portfolio Management, IndusInd Bank Limited, a banking leader with over 30 years of experience at various banks, including Bank of America, ABN AMRO, RBS, and IndusInd. Samir has managed various businesses across assets, liabilities, and payments, including personal banking, credit cards, auto, and personal loans. He currently heads Decision Sciences and Portfolio Management at the IndusInd Bank and is responsible for leveraging data, advanced analytics, and AI to improve business outcomes across the consumer and corporate bank. Samir was recently recognized by Business World magazine as one of the top 100 marketers in India. Welcome to the panel. All right, last but not the least, and a representative of the business community here is Ankit Khurana. Ankit Khurana is an award-winning tech entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience across B2B and D2C tech businesses. He has built and scaled pioneering businesses from India's first teledermatology platform to one of India's largest skincare clinics chain. He currently serves as the Chief Marketing Officer of India Lens, a leading consumer credit marketplace in India with over 18 million members on the platform. Welcome on the panel. And thank you for taking the theme. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be an interesting conversation, but the first question remains the same for all of you. And I'm not going with the tradition of ladies first. I'm going to reverse it and say, let the lady have the last word.
Sure. That's all.
So, why is UPI so successful in India?
Many reasons. Of course, we can attribute multiple things that have happened since 2013, 14, 15. Big event in 2016, COVID, digitization, a lot of things. But I think from a product and a consumer mindset perspective, I think the lack of friction has been the biggest reason for UPI's adoption. Of course, India has gone from being a 37% or penetration of bank accounts to nearly 80% now. Financial inclusion has been not just an SDG goal, but also a big part of the government's agenda to ensure well-being, and that sort of brings a lot of awareness to the population about how to be financially active. Funnily, one of the founder of one of the leading online brokerages recently said in an interview that it's no longer in Maslow's hierarchy. It's no longer about food, shelter, security. It's food, shelter, security, and financial services. So I think UPI has enabled that in a very frictionless manner, right? And my favorite, during COVID, a lot of us were traveling. Post lockdown, we were all traveling, trying to find our work from home sort of places, and it was fascinating. Whether it was the hills of Uttarakhand or the beaches of Pondicherry, vendors on the side of the road were chasing your car with a QR code as a differentiator that please buy from me because I can accept a UPI payment, right? And that's really what shows why UPI has been adopted so well, because it's not just about lack of friction that of course helps in adoption, but I think it's given populations across different stratas a common language to transact with each other. And that's really where I think the beauty of UPI is well.
So, I mean, needless to say, UPI has certainly, solved the pain points for the users. The users are both individuals who want to make payments and individuals who are accepting payments. So that goes without saying, and Ankit was referencing. So I just want to take a little bit of step back because we are going to come back and talk about how UPI is actually frictionless and seamless and a very easy way to make payments. But there have been some crucible moments, I would say, in this journey of UPI. Started in 2016, which, in my opinion, have kind of contributed to the phenomenal growth that we've seen. First, of course, has been, the sponsorship and the push that has come from the government, from the Reserve Bank, to push digitization. So I think that is where it certainly started. And 2016, we all know, was the year of birth of UPI. It was also the year of demonetization, and followed by a lot of push that came in the system to move towards digitization. So that was, I think, the first crucible, a moment when in this journey of UPI. The other thing, I think, a very significant thing was the inclusion of various stakeholders in the ecosystem. So typically, financial ecosystems have banks, which have always been there. The regulator, of course, has always been there. But the inclusion of third-party apps like PhonePe, Google Pay, Paytm, I think that was a very significant moment. They made a very significant contribution in onboarding new customers. So the creation of the journeys that happened, the ease with which you could use apps and you could use UPI happened because you had these, payment apps that came in and were part of and needless to say, I mean, a lot of capital was invested in incentivizing cashbacks, which brought the first set of customers onto UPI. So if I look back, say 2019, almost 75% of the consumers transactions were P2P. So the initial bunch of customers were brought into UPI by the apps that I'm referencing. And to my mind, the third crucible moment happened around COVID, right? And which also coincided with the government zeroizing the MDR on merchant payments. So we call India the land of retailers, kirana stores. So with that one decision and with the introduction of interoperable QR codes, which we were suddenly every single shopkeeper or every single person was able to accept payments having a printout of a QR code with zero cost. So everybody in India could accept digital payments, at zero cost. So if you now look at the data today, almost 60% of transactions that happen P2M or person to merchant. So people who are making purchases and paying, merchants. So that's I just thought that I just wanted to put this in context in terms of some of the ecosystem related stuff that was in the back and, some of the necessary conditions that existed, like the penetration of bank accounts, the penetration of smartphones. These were necessary conditions for success, of UPI, and even the presence of IMPS, because UPI, we already had an instant payment mechanism that was existing already, and UPI was built on the top of that. So, these, and of course, the convenience of using UPI, and I'm going to maybe let some of my other, panelists talk about that.
Thanks, Amit. Of course, what you said is the entire ecosystem which actually played a role in what we are seeing UPI today. But I'm just going back to when I followed Nandan Dilekani's story many years back when he was mentioning that the mobile revolution has happened in India. And he was saying that how can I use this for a payment? How can I use, tomorrow I want Indians to have this one as the bank. And many years back, he was in an interview, he was saying And that is when I think the idea came in that how can mobile number become your payment mechanism? So tomorrow, if I'm walking on the road, I need cash. I'm searching for an ATM. I'm run out of cash or I need money. So I ask the other guy, can you just pass on my money or lend me some money? So how do we transact on the mobile? And that is when I think this idea came in that if I have a payment mechanism which is enabled through a mobile number, and all your bank accounts today are linked, your mobile number is seeded on the bank account. So if that is done, and then if you see all your UPI addresses, which is the virtual payment address, is a mobile number linked address. So once you have the mobile number linked in, so also just think, how does India pay today? So what are the mechanisms? It's RTGS, it's NEFT, it's IMPS, it's UPI. Now for all the other payment methods, if you see, you need to keep a chit in your pocket every time to see that, how do I make an RTGS? I need to have the IFSC code, I have to have this, I need to have that. But how can I make it more convenient for people where I don't need to really think, remember, or have some data with me to say that, okay, when I make this payment. Second part is that whenever I use all these payment methods, I need to access any bank's application. Now, first is that you log into a bank's application, you need some 3-4 passwords and OTPs and so on and so forth. But today in UPI, we wanted to make something so convenient that I don't depend on all that. And all this is applicable, which is agnostic to any application. Of course, the final end is my bank account where the amount is going to get debited. But then the accessibility is not restricted to that bank's application. The accessibility will be through any application, which is a UPI-enabled application. And I think that's what it made. The convenience factor came in. I think that was very much there in these guys' minds at that point of time to say that we have to make it more and more convenient. And with a mobile number, how can I make that available? So today we have all that convenience, but even after that, the security measures are there. We have pins, we have the device binding, everything in place. Apart from that, we have the convenience. The convenience has been created. It's been thought from that perspective. And that's why the inclusion has happened today. Anywhere, even we are seeing the numbers moving higher, even for the age bracket for 60 plus, the UPI transactions are moving higher because it's so convenient. And then, of course, the charges, there are no charges. Even RTGS and EFT, there are no charges as far as RBI is concerned, but some of the banks, may levy or may not levy. So I think that's, for me, is the biggest factor why UPI is successful today. Thanks.
Thank you. So this is more like from the horse's mouth, and I agree with everything that was said here today in the evening. Yes, in my sense, UPI today is really very successful because it is so convenient to make a payment today, right? So yes, convenience. It's secure because you have two-factor authentication. You can just click, put in a PIN number. It is tagged to your mobile number. But there are certain other factors that, of course, I know because I'm a part of NPCI, and I'd love to share with you all. Is there was IMPS. UPI was born because of the limitations of IMPS, because you could not do, one-click payments, or you could not have multi-party transactions, which is the problem that UPI. We came up with UPI to solve for that problem today. When you look at it from that level, what was our idea? Our idea, IMPS, when we launched, was more product-driven approach. For us, it was more of a product, right? But when we launched UPI in 2016, we didn't want to launch a product. We wanted to launch a platform that will act more like an ecosystem, which will be a collaborative ecosystem, right? Today, so when we talk about UPI, we have banks, we have third-party applications, we have payment service providers, you name it, and they can actually integrate with UPI. It's an open architecture. What we wanted to do was look at it as a platform. Work on standardization. So when we say standardization, we're going to look at what the onboarding process should be. Because if you let every app have a different onboarding process, it's not going to be the best customer experience, right? So we're looking at onboarding. We are looking at dispute resolution. But are we really the ones dictating what the use cases should be? We're not. I mean, look at it, what's happening in the market today. On UPI transactions, PhonePe, Google Pay, Paytm, they account for almost 95% of the transactions that are happening in the market today, right? Innovation driven by them based on the use cases that they deem fit, right? What does the customer really want? Convenience, yes, but there could be something else that is missing. Now, very recently, Paytm integrated UPI Lite, right? That integration itself, it got them into the leading position as far as volume share was concerned. So the number of transactions done on UPI Lite, Paytm was clocking in 61% in terms of shares, right? The volume share. Otherwise, if you see, generally, PhonePe is typically in the forefront leading when it comes to UPI transactions. What we wanted to really bring was a platform that was secure. It could build an ecosystem, anybody could use it. So that is on the side of how do we work, how do we collaborate with the payments ecosystem. On the consumer side of the story, while yes, convenience is what everybody tends to see, but there are very certain simple, aspects of what UPI has really done, right? How many of you today look at the street hawker or the window who's accepting QR payment? He would have never been able to get credit from a bank or an NBFC because he was only dealing in cash. There is no way you can actually figure out what his creditworthiness could be, how much is he earning, how much is he spending. Today, they can actually avail credit. They can, like you and me, they can actually walk into an electronic store and probably buy goods on loan. They could have access to microcredit, right? So we've opened that up. As a woman, earlier we did have wallets. We could do P2P transfers, right? Peer-to-peer through mobile numbers. But was I really comfortable, giving that rickshaw or a taxi guy making a payment because he knew what my mobile number was? And I wasn't, as a woman, and even as men, you don't necessarily want your number landing up with somebody today because that's the phone where you receive your messages and OTPs, right? So what did UPI do? It created that secure layer where we use aliases, right? Your virtual payment address could be anything. I could have an alias saying Superwoman at OK Access, right? And nobody is going to know which bank account is it going to. So the whole idea, at least for us at NPCI, was to build this ecosystem. And I'm just going to take one moment because this is actually the important part. When Mr. Guerra was addressing and Mrs. Broad was addressing, and you said internet penetration, we're talking about smartphones, but look at where we are today, right? The innovation that UPIs are driving. You look at Hello UPI. That on Hello UPI, it actually runs on conversational AI. Somebody who does not have a smartphone, somebody who's not educated enough to use their phone to type, has a feature phone, can actually converse with the AI and make payments. They can transfer funds. They can actually speak out the PIN, and there's a voice recognition that would help complete that transaction, albeit with all validations and processing in the back end, right? So today that feature is available in Hindi and English and can be used in many other languages, right? Similarly, today on UPI, it can do anything that you could do with credit cards. You can set up mandates for your IPOs. You can have standing instructions where you put in your PIN one time and recurring payments will go from your, whichever account is linked. It'll keep going regularly. You don't necessarily have to go and put a PIN number. So when you look at it from the 30,000 feet and you see all of these benefits, these are all stemming from UPI. That is really what the value we are trying to create and bring to the general population and to the banks and, all the partners in the ecosystem.
Thank you. I think there's no doubt about the convenience bit, whether we're talking about from the consumer point of view, from the financial institutions point of view, and the government is, of course, helped. I'm coming back to you quickly, but my first question to you, Samir, after the utility is, how do you think the UPI is better than the mobile wallet? The wallet.
Yeah, the first and I think the most basic difference is that you don't need to load UPI, right? You have to load a wallet. And in financial services and worldwide, the operating word is trust, right? So your money stays in your trusted bank account, right? What UPI allows you to do, therefore, I'm just comparing it with the wallet, is that you can make a payment from any bank account to any bank account with any bank. So it's widely, interoperable. And I think recently even wallets are going to become interoperable courtesy UPI. Because UPI will provide the layer of interoperability. But in the past, they were not, right? So when you were moving money to a wallet, you had to be comfortable putting a certain amount of money in a certain wallet. You also potentially had to live with multiple wallets. So you had a general purpose wallet like a Paytm or a MobiKwik. You had a cab wallet, a Uber wallet, or an Ola wallet. And you could have an Amazon Pay wallet. So there was a point when I was forgetting how much money I had in various wallets for various use cases. So it made it as a UPI. Makes it very convenient because I don't need to do all of that. My money is in my bank account and it's earning interest, right? If I move money out of my bank account into a wallet, it stops earning interest as well. So these are, I guess, some of the key benefits, and then features like ability to set up a mandate, so paying for your Netflix or your Apple subscriptions, the recurring subscriptions. So there are those are the other benefits that may not have been available in the wallets. So yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'm coming back to you now, Sonal. So tell us about your journey in context of the UPI in APAC. We are a little bit delayed, so
yes. So in APAC, of course, it's the region that I'm leading at NBCI, but there is so much opportunity today in the Asia Pacific region. There are already partners that we are working with. We already have merchant acceptance in Singapore today. So if you have a UPI-enabled app, you can actually scan and make a payment seamlessly, right? Likewise, Honorable Finance Minister recently announced that we are also bringing, we're partnering with Sri Lanka for UPI acceptance. So all the corridors where we can create interoperability, where we have large Indian diaspora, we have Indian tourists visiting, we are trying to create interoperability where our citizens can actually go and use their UPI-powered apps. But other than that, what we are also doing is providing UPI as a sovereign solution. For, there are certain countries where a real-time payments ecosystem does not exist. In those cases, we are closely working with those partners where we are actually giving our source code to them to integrate. So what that does is, instead of starting from scratch and trying to rebuild from scratch, today they can actually take our architecture, they can take UPI-like architecture, and they can build on it. They can invest their time and energies on innovating and customizing that use case for their particular country. So that's what we're doing for APAC at the moment.
I'm going to come to Sitanshu in a minute, but my question, taking the lead from what Sonal is, Ankit, you're representing the business community. So according to you, is it UPI is only for domestic transactions, or your experience says it's equally useful already in the international transactions as well?
First thing, we already have close to about 15 million diaspora, another 20-25 million tourists who travel outside the country every year. That's about 40 million. It's a small European nation moving around internationally every year. That's market number one. But more importantly, as India grows, as India's position in the world strengthens, Indian businesses, Indian entrepreneurs, Indian professionals, they are moving, just like His Excellency mentioned, there are about 300,000 Indians in New Zealand. And these are people who are not just sending money back, paying for their families' insurance, their utilities back home, but they're also interacting with their friends in the countries that they're living in. And a lot of times it's just, today's world is not about, there's just so much to do and there's just so much happening. You don't want to be spending time trying to figure out, oh wait, let me figure out how to get my dollars and then pay you and then change it back to the Indian rupee and none of that. I mean, a small example, I was in a European country earlier this year and you would expect, right, in a Western European country, payments are easy. My wife and I were sitting for breakfast and this gentleman's like, no, we don't accept anything but cash. And I had to walk a kilometer to find an ATM, pay $4.50 or something like that, to withdraw 100 euros to make a payment of 9 euros for breakfast. I was like, we're spoiled.
And if this was happening 10 years ago, you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, now we're spoiled, right? We don't accept such things anymore, but we're like, boss, you don't take it. You don't have a QR code, right? And that's the whole point. That these are things which an economic transaction is not something which should be taking up too much of your mind space. Rather, when you're traveling abroad or when people are interacting with each other, there's so much more to do together than to worry about how do I make this transaction happen, right? And that's really where I see the interoperability and the open architecture of UPI can bring the world closer together.
Thank you for that. Sitanshu, you're representing a foreign bank, and I would like to know from you, what are the opportunities in the Pacific countries for introducing UPI, and do you see this happening soon enough?
Yeah, so we're already talking with them for one of our countries where we are present. We would definitely like to be participating with NPCI for UPI in the APAC countries where we are present. But I mean, of course, in UPI, even in India, we are not right now, available because we don't do consumer banking at this stage. But of course, I mean, there are things like what Ankit said, that we are spoiled. When I talk to my colleagues across the globe, I think India is much ahead in this space, hugely ahead, and they really can't think of the kind of numbers that we do, the way we do transactions. There are many countries which are really have to set up their infrastructure. So therefore, I think there are lots of things which needs to be set up while we're talking for one of the countries. We need a service provider in that country who should agree to host NPCI's QR code there with all the merchants. Similarly, in all the other countries, of course, there is a cost for everything. The cost has to be reasonable enough so that when I travel to Singapore or when I travel to Tokyo and I use UPI, I don't pay more than what I use if I use my credit card, or if I carry cash from here. So all those factors are, I think, yet to be sorted out. The infrastructure is yet to be kind of being ready, and the acceptability. I mean, today when I travel to Singapore, if I want to use UPI, the merchants, there has to be substantial number of merchants who needs to accept an NPCI QR. So I think that is beginning to happen right now, and going forward, we will see that happening. And of course, the cost becomes an important factor, and they need to reciprocate with NPCI in India and the Indian government what the government wants. And if all that happens, then definitely we would want to have UPI as one of the products in all these countries. But in Asia Pac, I find there's a company called Alipay, which is hugely, widely spread over there in most of the countries over there, doing multiple products and multiple kind of transactions, including cross-border. Incidentally, in India, cross-border is always regulated by something called FEMA. So whatever we do, the overriding factor is the FEMA, the regulations and all that has to be in place, and that's where RBI and NPCI, I think, are working together to ensure that all that factors are coming. Thanks.
So I was going to come back to you later, but since, the last question to you would be, if this was to happen, Sonal is right here, at which stages you are. So within the Pacific, which country do you think it would happen the fastest for you? The first?
So, you see, the way it happens is, just to touch upon a little bit on the technical side, that whatever cross-border you do, there has to be a transfer of foreign currency. So whenever you transfer foreign currency, settlements have to happen in foreign currency. If you're doing in Singapore, it has to be in Singapore dollars. If you're doing in Japan, it has to be in Japanese yen. So as far as my bank is concerned, we are present in most of the countries in APAC, and a lot of these Indian banks have their nostrils with our bank. So we would like to participate in, let's say, Sing dollar. We would like to participate in a yen, or we would like to participate in a Thai baht. Wherever there is an opportunity and wherever the cost becomes beneficial to us. So for us, we are pretty much stronger in most of these countries in the Asia-Pac region. And so wherever the chance happens. But to begin with, yes, Japan is our forte, and we would like to be there first. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Samir, I'm coming to you. This is my last question to you. So for the business community in the room, what are your final comments about the adopting of UPI in the business side of transactions?
Right. No, so if I put on a business hat, I mean, today, if you look at India, the number of UPI transactions is about 10x of all credit and debit transactions put together. Okay, so we do about 100 crores of credit and debit transactions a month. We do 1,000 crore UPI transactions in a month, right? Now, if you're a business, you can't ignore UPI, right? It is a very significant means of receiving payments. And UPI, is being created, the bedrock is enabling smaller transactions. So if you're accepting payments, obviously you have to have UPI. UPI is also free from a merchant perspective. So it is the cheapest way to accept payments and accept payments from a very wide audience, as evident from the numbers. So obviously the single biggest use case is accepting payments. If you are a subscription business, UPI is very good because you can set up a mandate which allows you to take regular payments, from a business perspective. That obviously that's a cost if you're a subscription business. If you're an e-com business, for example, today one of the significant costs of doing an e-com business is COD, right? A lot of people want to pay cash. They want to only make a payment when they receive the goods in hand, because there is a lack of trust. So now, UPI has a ability where they allow you to block a certain amount for a certain merchant and then keep making payments against that. That creates trust on both sides. The merchant knows that the amount is blocked, and the recipient of the goods, if you order something online, you only need to make the payment when you get it. So again, from a business perspective, so these are some of the, payment acceptance type of use cases that are there. Everybody here has talked about cross-border. So if your customers are cross-border, so if you are dealing with, let's say, travelers coming into the country, or which is foreign travelers coming into the country, they can use UPI. If you have Indians, if your customers are travelers moving outside, they can go and use UPI. Today you can use UPI in countries like Singapore, right? At merchants, where you can just use your UPI. If you're dealing with NRIs today can use UPI if their Indian bank account is linked to their foreign phone number, right? So if you're if you're dealing with people who are traveling, if your customers, so this is another big and evolving use case as I see for businesses. And I'd like to end with I'm seeing very interesting stuff. So one of the use cases we got was from a paint company. And what the paint company wanted to do was they wanted to incentivize the final person who paints your house, to recommend their product, right? So what they did was they actually put coupons in the paint boxes. Now, who opens the paint box? It's not, if I'm getting my house painted, I'm not going to open the paint box, right? It's the person who's painting the house who's going to get it. And when you open that box, you take out a coupon. The coupon has a code. You SMS that code to the number given, and they make a UPI credit as an incentive to you. It might be a small 50, 100 rupee incentive, but somebody was actually looking at using UPI in a very innovative way to reach the last mile person in their value chain. So I'm sure.
So innovation at its best.
So I think the use cases are evolving as business, and of course I would be remiss if I go without saying it, is that you can actually link your overdraft account or your current account to UPI. Of course, there are limitations of the limits. I mean, you can pay only X amount, let's say 100,000 a day or whatever. So it may not meet all business needs, but it can meet a lot of, if you're making payments to somebody as a business, and you can choose to make a payment from your current account. You can also link your overdraft account to UPI. So, I mean, those are some of the things that come to my mind when I look at business tech payments.
Thank you for that. Ankit, you've just recently launched another project. Is UPI being used in that project? Do you want to share something about that?
Just for context, we're one of India's largest consumer lending marketplaces, online marketplaces. So we work with pretty much any and every bank and BFC in the country and act as their representatives to borrowers. So we primarily for personal loans and credit cards. I think more importantly, not just UPI, I think the India stack in itself has been a huge boon for the entire financial services space, right from doing a KYC to setting up UPI mandates for, it's not just about the fact that mandates can be set earlier, it's the convenience and the ease with which you can set it. And I have my colleague with me from our product team, and he'll tell you that the drop-offs when a consumer is in a digital loan journey, the drop-offs nearly actually go down by more than half when you implement mandates on UPI versus non-UPI mandates, right? And that's a huge deal for businesses, especially businesses like ours, which work on thin margins, for banks who work on thin margins. And that's where the entire India stack has really been a boon for digital businesses. UPI in itself, we are looking to build more products on UPI. I do have top of my wish list, which is credit on UPI. Of course, we have RuPay, and I know that RBI has allowed scheduled banks to offer credit lines on UPI. I hope that opens up to other institutions sooner, but the use case that was mentioned that a street roadside vendor or a hawker can access formal credit, that can only happen when you allow non-banking financial institutions to offer credit on UPI, and that's really where we're hoping that we'll be sooner than later. So yeah, that's what we've done.
Thank you for sharing that. Sitanshu, any last words before I ask my last question to the lady again?
Yeah, so I think UPI International is what everybody's looking at right now, and there are the list of countries that is there in their pipeline. And me working in an international bank, we keep getting queries across the globe saying that, we hear UPI, how does it work, how can we use it, etc. So somebody just mentioned that we've already got activated for NRIs. I think that's a very, very good step. That earlier only the Indian bank mobile numbers were supposed to be used, and now they have activated the international numbers also. So a lot of these NRIs, when they come to India, and this is the time I think the NRIs inflows will happen. So that's part number one. Also for the foreign nationals, I think that's a step. Once that comes up, it's the way it works is that it is a prepaid wallet that the foreign nationals, whosoever lands in India, they have to create the wallet. I mean, today when they come in, they have to actually exchange their dollars or something like that. So they create that wallet at the airports. I think that numbers, once it grows, I believe it's right now available in 2 or 3 airports, and it's not in all the airports, but I'm sure it's going to be happening very soon. That is when the change will be, because recently in some G20 summit also I saw there were some videos of some German minister paying a roadside shop through the UPI and through a PPI, the way he had created. But if that all happens, and it's going to be a real game changer. And the availability, once that infrastructure gets built up, I think that's where we will see. We already know about the number of transactions going in INR in UPI, but we will soon see the number of transactions going in international or cross-border UPI. And that is where it's going to be a game changer. There will be a lot of money also for the intermediaries like us, because we will earn on the conversion. We hope to see those numbers growing up. And, I think it's a great thing. And I wish, NPCI all the best, that they get support from the government, whatever they want to become. And the regulations are also gets a little diluted, because the cross-border and FEMA, the regulations still are a little tighter. If that happens, then the convenience factor will definitely come in.
Thank you. Sonal, you earlier mentioned straight from the horse's mouth. So we want to also hear the challenges, if any, or anything that people should be cautious about when it comes to the UPI.
So one common thing, and I'm sure a lot of the audience here must have heard of, and one word of caution that I would say is, please don't share your UPI pin with anybody, which you keep saying. But other than that, really, by the way the platform has been made, we, in all the experience that we've had and the use cases that we've seen that are getting deployed, it's only helped us come up with a lot of challenges that were otherwise, there in the market that we were not able to solve for, are getting solved. If you honestly ask me at this point, when you're looking at it from an open architecture or, a platform perspective, more than challenges, I'm not saying that it might be completely, devoid of any challenges that might be, but in terms of the advantages or the benefits that such a platform can deliver to you, they completely outweigh, right, any of the challenges that could possibly come in. So that's how you really need to look at it. And that's what my suggestion or advice would be.
Thank you very much. Any last words, Sameer?
I think we've come a long way, and the interesting thing I was trying to figure out before I came here, what is the number of users we have, and I actually could not find the number. So there are different numbers quoted on UPI, and the way, at least from an India perspective, I see. So when the bankers look at numbers, one of the things we look at is there are about 97 crores. So that is 97 crore debit cards in the country, right? So that's broad. That's a very significant penetration, of bank accounts in the country, if you were to look at it. The only number that I could get on users of UPI was about 30 crore kind of a number. So, I think we've come a long way. There have been, I have not, but to be honest, I have been in payments and banking now almost 30 years, and I did not expect the kind of success that we have seen in UPI. It is phenomenal. It was unexpected. It's unprecedented. But yet, I think we have a long road ahead of us. So there is a growth runway ahead, and I think we've got a good thing going. So,
Absolutely, I agree. Ankit, any last words?
I'd just like to congratulate NPCI and all the people involved in it. I think it's been a transformational development for our country. Hopefully, something that can also influence the world. It's just something which has been great for us, and I hope we continue to grow.
Thank you very much. I hope it was as interesting for you all as it was for me. I have nothing to do with banking. This was really enlightening, and I'm really impressed with all the conversations we've had here. Thank you for listening patiently.
Your QR with us. Well, thank you so very much for taking time to be here today evening. What a wonderful session. But as we were talking and celebrating our Diwali, so I request you all to keep your QR code clean, because Goddess Lakshmi ka transaction should be clear into your account. And don't forget to pay the tax to the commissioner with us. So thank you so very much for being here. Let me request Vikram here, our President IOBA, and His Excellency Reliving, to kindly hand over the mementos to our distinguished guests.
request His Excellency Mr. Kamlesh Rishi